Imagine spending like a whole year locked in a corporate boardroom, right?
Oh.
Fighting tooth and nail to save just a single penny per mile on your freight costs, only to lose 10 times that amount the literal second the truck backs up to your warehouse.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
It's crazy.
No.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive on the warehouse reality check. If you're someone who wants to understand the hidden, often really messy mechanics of how the world actually operates, without getting completely bogged down in all the industry jargon, you are definitely in the right place today.
Absolutely.
Because today our mission is to extract the critical insights from a really fascinating report. It's titled Supply Chain Planning Drives Primary Trans.PDF, and we've got a whole stack of supporting logistics documentation to go with it.
Right.
We are essentially hunting for these hidden cost leaks in the global supply chain, specifically how bad planning creates just massive transportation waste, and how fixing it can save companies literally millions of dollars.
Billions.
To help decode all this, I've got our resident supply chain expert here with me. So just to kick things off, if a company has already negotiated these ultra-lean transportation rates, down to the penny, where exactly is all this money leaking out?
It's leaking out in the translation, basically. The translation between the digital plan and the physical world.
Okay.
You see, companies, they win the battle in the boardroom over the contract rate, but they completely lose the war on the loading dock. And to understand why that happens, we really have to look at the history of how these companies operate.
Right.
The modern supply chain runs on this massive stack of enterprise software. You've got your advanced planning and scheduling systems, your ERPs, warehouse management.
Sure, all the big acronyms.
Exactly. But historically, these were built to operate sequentially, like in complete silos.
Wait, so these billion-dollar multinational companies are essentially running their logistics like a 1990s game of telephone.
Yeah.
Where one system whispers to the next and the last system just, it can't talk back.
That is unfortunately very accurate. Information is passed down the line, but it rarely flows backward in any kind of real-time way.
Wow.
So the planning software creates this demand forecast, tosses it over the wall to transportation, who then tosses it to the warehouse.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Oh, it is. Because those systems, they just weren't built for today's volatility where, demand shifts overnight.
Yeah.
And that disconnect causes companies to make a fundamental and incredibly expensive mistake right from the start.
Which is?
They completely miscategorize their freight spending.
Okay, let's unpack this because the documentation heavily emphasizes this idea of a fatal flaw of the single line item.
Right.
What exactly are these companies getting wrong when they look at their spreadsheets?
Well, what's fascinating here is how treating these two distinct animals as the same thing completely obscures the reality. They look at their budget and they just see one massive bucket. They just call it transportation costs.
It's just one line.
One line. But they are actually dealing with two entirely different logistical beasts, primary freight and secondary freight.
Okay, break those down for me. What's primary?
Primary freight is the bulk shift. Think of a massive manufacturing plant in Ohio sending full heavy truckloads of product to a regional distribution center down in Texas.
Got it.
You're driving across the entire country, so it naturally has a very high cost per move. But, and this is key, if you optimize it, if you fill that truck to the absolute brim, it has a very low cost per unit. It's just highly sensitive to planning errors.
Right, because if you're sending half-empty trailers across the country, you're just destroying your margins.
Exactly. Now, secondary freight is totally different. That's the last mile of the regional move.
Like distribution center to the store.
Yep. Taking the product from that Texas DC and driving it to the retail stores or the end customers. And this arena is entirely customer-driven, highly variable. The only thing that matters here is a metric called OTIF.
OTIF, yeah. I see that thrown around a lot in these reports. On time in full, right?
Right.
Why is that specific metric like the holy grail for secondary freight?
Because the customer is king. Retailers will penalize you heavily if you mess up their operations. If you're, say, a consumer goods company running a big promotion at a grocery chain and your product arrives a day late or the order is just half complete.
The grocery store has empty shelves.
Exactly. They lose money. So they will hit the supplier with massive fines, sometimes a percentage of the total cost of goods, just for missing that delivery window.
Ouch.
Yeah. So because of that, secondary freight operates in this sort of whatever it takes mode.
Yeah.
You prioritize the delivery time over efficiency. You just get it there.
Okay, so if I'm tracking this, Treating primary and secondary freight as the exact same thing is it's basically like trying to manage a massive cross-country industrial freight train using the exact same rule book you'd use for a localized pizza delivery moped.
That's a great way to put it.
Like if you run a freight train like a pizza moped, where speed and immediate customer reaction are the only things that matter, you are literally going to derail the entire operation.
Exactly. When you apply that hyper-reactive pizza moped mindset to your massive primary freight network, you introduce absolute chaos.
Yeah.
And this is where we have to look at how these highly advanced, incredibly expensive planning systems actively sabotage those long-distance shipments.
Right. This is the sawtooth pattern thing. The report really hammers on this.
It does.
But, here's where it gets really interesting to me. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that the software itself is the villain here. How does an advanced AI planning system actively cause the problem?
It comes down to this hypervigilance around what they call safety stock. Planning systems like the APS we mentioned earlier, they are programmed with very strict thresholds to protect inventory levels at the distribution centers.
Okay.
If the inventory dips even slightly below that safety line, the system panics.
Wait, the software actually panics?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how consumers behaved during the early days of the pandemic.
Oh, the toilet paper hoarding.
Exactly. You walk into a grocery store, you see one empty shelf, and human psychology kicks in. You panic, and buy 50 rolls you don't immediately need, just to be safe.
Right, right.
Well, the APS software does the exact same thing mathematically. If the distribution center uses, say, one more pallet of product than expected on a Monday, the software doesn't just order one pallet to replace it.
Let me guess, it orders a whole truck.
It triggers a massive, urgent replenishment order for an entire truckload, just to get that safety stock back up to the absolute maximum immediately.
That seems like a huge overreaction, and I'm guessing that creates a ripple effect down the line, right?
A massive one. This overcompensation creates what the industry calls the Sawtooth pattern of volatility. If you look at a data chart of daily truckload shipments on a specific route, it literally looks like the jagged teeth of a handsaw.
Just up and down.
Up and down. Monday, the system says you need 2 loads. Tuesday, it panics over a minor dip and suddenly demands 14 loads.
Oh.
Then Wednesday, it realizes it overordered, so it drops back down to 0.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of a warehouse manager right now, and that sounds physically impossible to manage. I mean, if I only have the staff and the dock doors to load 5 trucks a day, what happens when the computer suddenly demands 14 trucks on a random Tuesday?
Yeah.
Doesn't the system know how big my parking lot is?
Surprisingly, no.
Yeah.
And that is a phenomenon known as capacity blindness.
Capacity blindness.
Right. The supply plan lives in this theoretical mathematical universe. It measures reality in SKUs and time. It assumes you have unlimited square footage, unlimited concrete in your yard, unlimited dock doors, and an infinite number of forklift drivers.
So the physical warehouse just completely breaks under the strain.
Completely. The theoretical plan just collapses on the physical loading dock. Let's look at the real-world fallout of those 14 trucks actually showing up.
It's got to be us.
The warehouse becomes a massive bottleneck. Trucks end up sitting idle in the yard for days just waiting for an open dock door. And when you make a trucker wait, you get hit with massive detention fees.
Plus the overtime for your staff.
Yeah.
Exactly. Expensive overtime. And frankly, your core transportation carriers, they hate this volatility. Trucking companies need predictability to position their fleets efficiently.
So they end up punishing you for it.
They absolutely do. Carriers will penalize you for your own internal chaos. They often slap a 10% to 15% rate premium on your lanes just to deal with your sawtooth volume.
Jeez.
And it gets worse. When your core carriers can't handle a sudden spike of 14 loads, you have to hit the spot market.
Which is basically surge pricing, right?
Pretty much. You end up hiring these last-minute non-core carriers, which are almost always wildly expensive, and they frequently utilize older, less fuel-efficient trucks.
Okay, so you've painted a pretty bleak picture here. We've got blind software screaming for 14 trucks, a warehouse that can only physically handle 5, and trucking companies charging us extra just to deal with the headache.
Yep.
If we can't just, rip out these massive ERP systems and start over, how do we actually fix this?
Yeah.
There has to be a way to smooth out that volume before the trucks are ever even dispatched. There is, and is a concept called shipment leveling. Instead of reacting to these daily minor inventory dips and panicking, planners need to adopt a much broader horizon.
Okay.
Rather than looking at tomorrow, you need to look at about 30 days to forecast where these spikes are going to happen and then proactively smooth them out.
I see the logic there, but doesn't that just push the bottleneck further down the line? I mean, if the APS says we need the product tomorrow to prevent a stockout, how can we just decide to hold it back for 3 weeks to smooth the schedule?
That's the nuance of dynamic orchestration. And it's where a specific company highlighted in the documentation comes into play, Provision.I.
Right, provision.
They developed a system called level load to solve this exact gap. It acts as an agentic bridge between the theoretical supply plan and the actual operational reality of the warehouse.
Now, agentic is one of those buzzwords flying around everywhere right now. What does an agentic system actually do differently than just, traditional software?
Well, traditional software just alerts a human that a rule was broken. It flashes a red light. An agentic system actively negotiates competing priorities to solve the problem autonomously.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you have a demand agent saying, hey, I need product in Texas right now. But you have a supply agent saying, we only have 5 dock doors available in Ohio today.
So they fight it out.
Level load mediates. It ingests all the data from those disconnected software silos we talked about, and it generates an actionable 30-day schedule. It holds back the less urgent stock transfers and pulls forward the highly critical ones, filling the gaps in the schedule so the volume perfectly matches what the physical warehouse can handle.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, I want to make sure I understand the mechanics of this. How do you book a truck 30 days in advance if you are constantly shifting the priority of what actually needs to go inside it?
Think of it like a reservation system at a highly exclusive restaurant.
Okay.
You book a table for 4 at 7 p.m., weeks in advance to secure the capacity. You know you are going to eat, but you don't actually tell the chef if you're ordering the steak or the fish until you sit down at the table. Levelo does this exact thing with freight. It issues placeholder stock transfer orders early, using these dummy codes to secure the truck and the driver from the carrier at a really good rate.
Wait, if I'm the warehouse manager and the AI books a truck 30 days out with a dummy code, how do I schedule my guys? I mean, I have no idea what they're actually going to be loading.
The beauty is you don't need to know if it's 20 pallets of shampoo or 20 pallets of soap a whole month in advance.
Oh, I see.
You just need to know that a 53-foot trailer is arriving at Dock 4 at 2:00 p.m., and you need a forklift driver ready. The exact SKUs are determined at the last possible minute based on actual real-time demand.
That makes total sense. Okay, so we've magically smoothed out the schedule. The trucks arrive on time. The carriers are happy. The warehouse staff isn't working crazy overtime. But earlier you said companies are bleeding dollars per mile. If the trucks are showing up in an orderly, leveled schedule now, where is the money still leaking out? Is it, like, inside the trailer itself?
Precisely. All that effort of smoothing the schedule is completely wasted if those trucks are driving down the highway mostly empty.
Right.
We have to talk about load optimization. Paying a truck to transport air across the country is the ultimate invisible cost leak. The sources emphasize a core metric that is just vital here. Loading a truck to 85% capacity costs you the exact same amount of money as loading it to 100%.
Because the driver's time, the truck lease, the diesel fuel, it's essentially all a fixed cost for that specific trip.
Right. But at 85% capacity, that truck is delivering far less product per dollar spent, and companies are shipping air all the time. The research highlighted something they call the 91% problem.
The 91% problem, what is that?
They analyzed this massive sample of 150,000 heavily loaded trucks across various networks, and out of all those trucks, 91% of them could have safely fit more payload.
91%?
91%.
That is a staggering amount of wasted space. How does that even happen? We just talked about having AI predicting demand 30 days out, but the guy on the dock can't figure out how to fill a rectangular box.
Well, it's because we leave the most critical physical step up to human guesswork. It's trapped in what logistics professionals call tribal knowledge.
Tribal knowledge?
Yeah. When a loader is driving a forklift into a trailer, they're rarely using advanced mathematics or 3D modeling. They're relying on informal guidelines passed down from older workers, or they're just doing whatever worked last time.
Give me an example of that. What does this tribal knowledge actually look like in practice on the dock?
The classic example is the California Bridge formula.
Okay, I've actually heard of that, but what actually is it?
It's a literal law. It regulates the weight and axle spacing of commercial trucks to prevent them from, destroying highway bridges.
Makes sense.
In states like California, the distance from the truck's kingpin, which is the connection point between the cab and the trailer, to the center of the rear trailer axle cannot exceed 40 feet. Furthermore, the total 80,000 pounds of a fully loaded truck has to be distributed precisely across the steer tires, the drive tandem, and the trailer tandem.
So it's basically a massive physics equation.
Exactly. And if a human loader gets the physics wrong, say they shove all the heavy pallets of liquid right to the nose of the trailer, or they push them too far to the rear, the truck's axle weight becomes illegal.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. When that driver rolls across a Department of Transportation weigh station, they get hit with massive fines. Or they're forced to turn around and drive all the way back to the warehouse to be reloaded.
Man. So to avoid the fines and just the general headache, the forklift driver just plays it incredibly safe.
Yes. They might intentionally leave the back 15% of the trailer completely empty just to ensure they don't accidentally overload the rear axles.
Yeah.
Or, they refuse to stack lighter pallets on top of heavier ones because they're worried about crushing the product, even if the packaging is explicitly rated to handle it.
Wow.
Tribal knowledge prioritizes safety and avoiding fines over efficiency every time.
So how do you defeat that? I mean, you can't exactly just hand a forklift driver a calculator and a physics textbook while they're trying to move product on a deadline.
You don't. You have the software do the math for them. And this is the second half of Provision A's solution, a tool called AutoO2. It is an optimizing load builder. Remember those dummy codes Levelload used to book the truck 30 days out?
Right, the restaurant reservation analogy.
Exactly. Well, right before that truck is actually ready to be loaded, AutoO2 steps in.
Right.
It takes the real-time demand, replaces the dummy codes, and generates an actual mathematically optimized 3D load diagram.
Oh, that's cool.
It looks at the exact dimensions of every single case, the weight, the specific stacking rules like ensuring fragile chips aren't crushed by heavy jars of pasta sauce, and it perfectly calculates the weight distribution over the specific axles of the truck.
So it basically hands the forklift driver a literal step-by-step blueprint for how to play a perfect game of 3D Tetris with that specific load.
Precisely. This raises an important question, right? Why do companies accept digital transformation in the boardroom but leave the physical loading of 45,000 pounds of freight up to guesswork?
Yeah, why indeed?
The financial impact of fixing this is undeniable. The report cites a case study from Riviana Foods. By implementing this kind of mathematical load optimization, they saved $1 million a year.
$1 million.
$1 million. And they didn't negotiate cheaper rates. They literally just fit more product into the trucks they were already paying for.
So what does this all mean? Like, is this purely a financial play? Because if you are mathematically requiring fewer trucks to move the exact same amount of product, there has to be a huge sustainability angle here too, right?
It is arguably one of the most effective sustainability strategies a company can deploy. We are talking about Scope 3 carbon emissions.
Okay, but remind me on the scopes.
Sure. For those unfamiliar, Scope 1 and 2 are emissions a company produces directly, like running their own factories. Scope 3 refers to the indirect emissions occurring in their value chain, like the exhaust from a third-party trucking company they hire.
Got it.
If you optimize your loads and eliminate the empty space, you take physical trucks off the highway. Fewer trucks burning diesel directly lowers your Scope 3 emissions. It's a rare win-win. You save millions of dollars and you significantly reduce your carbon footprint simply by doing the math correctly.
So to pull all of this together, managing primary transportation isn't really about auditing freight bills after the fact or, bruising your knuckles, fighting over pennies in a carrier contract. It is really about eliminating waste at the source.
Exactly. If you can use an agentic system like Levelload to kill that chaotic Sawtooth pattern and then use the physics engines and AutoO2 to fully optimize the payloads inside the trailers, you completely transform your transportation network.
It's night and day.
It shifts from being this reactive, wildly unpredictable expense into a massive strategic advantage. As the documentation wisely points out, good companies plan, but great companies execute.
That is the perfect takeaway. Whether you are managing a global logistics network, running a regional business, or honestly just trying to navigate the chaotic projects in your own life, remember that a perfect, beautiful plan on a spreadsheet is completely useless if it ignores real-world physical constraints. You have to actively bridge the gap between theory and reality.
Well said.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder, something that builds on this idea of agentic AI. Right now, systems are perfecting a company's internal supply chain, right? Smoothing out their own spikes, filling every inch of their own truck. But what happens in the very near future when these agentic systems start talking to the AI of their competitors?
Oh, wow.
Could the future of logistics be rival companies, say? Two intensely competing beverage brands securely sharing unused trailer space on the exact same highways. If an AI can perfectly protect the proprietary data, calculate the axle weights, and split the bill, Could we completely eliminate empty freight globally through radical automated collaboration?
That is a fascinating thought.
It's definitely something to think about the next time you see a half-empty 18-wheeler rolling down the highway. Thank you for joining us on the Warehouse Reality Check for this deep dive. Keep questioning the reality behind the systems that run our world, and we'll catch you next time.